Appreciate the opportunity to share with you for just a brief moment. Dan, I've tried to take a lot of advice from Dan Flavin before I came down here about how to manage this, but today I'm on my fourth lunch. We do a lot of sitting, and then you do a lot of eating, and then you do a lot of sitting. So at some point I need to do a lot of running. But I apologize for being a few minutes late. Look, I'm so grateful to have support in the involved in the Southwest Alliance. George is a terrific mentor and somebody I always know I can pick the phone up and call to really get a lay of the ground and what's going on and what will be most impactful and most helpful for Southwest Louisiana. And I'm thankful for that. I'll just give you a couple of quick updates from my foxhole. So I'm the Vice Chair of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs in the Senate. Right now we have the capital outlay bill in our possession. We'll hold a special meeting in the morning. And we will be allocating amending that to add about 125 to 150 additional projects into that bill, reflective of the additional revenue that the state has recognized both yesterday at REC, the surpluses that we had, the capital outlay savings account money that we had. And Southwest Louisiana will be the beneficiary of a lot of those resources. We've talked a little bit between my colleagues and I about Southwest Louisiana fatigue. It's not our fault, right? We didn't pick two hurricanes to hit our area. We didn't pick some of the projects like the Calcasieu River Bridge. It's been so many years where it wasn't invested in and properly maintained. It's just now is the time that all these bills are coming due. But it's a good time to have that happen because obviously there's also a lot of resources available. My colleague Mark Abraham has done really a lot of the work to try to secure some additional bridge resources. I know we've worked closely with George as that has kind of materialized, as we've helped to define recurring revenue sources that are bondable, together with one-time cash money that's available. SWLA will be the beneficiary of some of those resources. As we finish up the capital outlay bill, the Port of Lake Charles will be the beneficiary of significant amount of resources to build those new berths, those new warehouses that really where all the underlying pilings had to be replaced as well. Very expensive projects, together with a number of water and sewer projects. A lot of people talk about all the money that we were going to have in Baton Rouge, and you just think that that it just money's falling out of the sky and that every project ought to be funded. But when you look at a couple of $1 billion, which is about what we were looking at the beginning of this session with extra money, and you start looking at things like a $400 million payment to the flood protection system around New Orleans. We've been obligated to that since Katrina. We didn't pay $400 million last year. We're going to pay $400 million more this year. I chair the water sector program where we set aside $300 million last year. We put out about 116 projects around the state of Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana. Got a lot of those projects from Benton to Starks to Lake Charles to Quincy, a lot of the communities in Southwest Louisiana. This year we're talking about putting as much as $500 million into that program. We have another $500 million set aside for infrastructure projects, $100 million go to Calcasieu River Bridge. And so very quickly that $2 billion, another $550 million, which is important to the Southwest Chamber and our business community, going into the Unemployment Trust Fund. That fund was at about $1.2 billion prior to the pandemic. We depleted all those resources during the pandemic. We also went into debt to the federal government to the tune of about $250 million. And until we get that balance north of $750 million, without suspending some of the laws and rules, which I've done the last couple of years, that we have to increase business taxes to the tune of about $60 million a year and lower benefit payments to the recipients of the Unemployment Trust Fund. So when you start talking about some of those big buckets, all of a sudden that $2 billion starts disappearing really, really quickly. But we will again benefit greatly in Southwest Louisiana from that. And then some of the other things that are of interest to the Chamber, and that one of which we'll vote on today, deals with the incentive programs that we use to attract business and industry to our state. We have a really complicated tax structure in Louisiana, and that's been a big headwind to us being successful in recruiting business and industry to our state. Your net effective tax rates are typically competitive with other states, but on the surface, we have a higher personal income tax rate. We have a higher corporate tax rate. We have the franchise tax. We have the inventory tax. We have all these taxes that are really headwinds to us being able to attract business and industry to our state. And so to compensate for that, we have some more lucrative incentive programs than some other states have, and it's really just a kind of a trade-off for bad tax policy that we've not been able to kind of correct. But one of those bills is the industrial tax exemption program. A lot of the big employers in Southwest Louisiana have been the beneficiaries of that program. And there's a bill today that we'll probably vote on the Senate floor that would seek to lock some of the provisions of that program into the state's constitution. Well, in my opinion, that's probably the wrong position to take, because those are business incentive programs where we're trying to be competitive with other states. And when you lock stuff in the Constitution, you're no longer agile. You're no longer in a position to change and modify these programs, even when everybody agrees, to be able to respond to what other states are doing with their own tax policy, to respond to what other states are doing with their own incentive programs. And so you'll see kind of a tough vote on that today. It's one of those votes that really kind of pairs our local government and state government, and we're all one team, but we all have different positions that we kind of fight for. But I think it's very, very important that we make sure that we remain agile in those programs so that we can use them to the best benefit of the citizens of our state as we seek to attract companies here and again overcome what in many cases is kind of bad tax policy historically in our state, although we are trying to improve that. So that's a little bit about what's going on kind of from my area right now. Happy to take any questions, George.
Anybody have any questions?
It's too easy.
You're still working with the Fort Polk progress. What's the outlook on Fort Polk?
Yes, sir. Look, I think Fort Polk, I just saw a report the other day. In the next 3 federal fiscal years, they've probably got more than $300 million worth of military construction projects slated for that installation. I think that mission has a very, very solid footing and a very solid future. They've continued to grow land there. The state is continuing to invest in the state road infrastructure, supports it. We're putting in a sewer system to kind of go around the exterior of the base. And I really see nothing but positive things on the future for that installation.
Very good. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.